Hello, everyone. Welcome to the LatentView webinar. I'm Sunil Kalra, Head of Data Engineering here at LatentView. Today, we have Jordan Thomas here with me. He's a Senior Manager, Resident Solution Architect at Databricks. Jordan is a seasoned data and analytics leader with extensive experience driving data and analytics strategy solutions for various delivery clients across the industries. Right, with more than 5 years of experience here at Databricks, he has been helping enterprise teams solve complex challenges. So his current focus is on EDW migrations from legacy data warehouse to the Databricks Lakehouse platform. Prior to joining Databricks, Jordan built and led the data practice at Accenture Innovation Lab in Houston. Welcome, Jordan. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Oh, thanks so much, Sunil. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, Jordan, today our topic is on EDW migrations. That's what we're going to take a deep dive in, right? So, let's kick off the things with our first question, right? So, why migrations, right? So, what are the top business priority, top business and technology drivers that you're seeing is pushing the enterprises to migrate their data warehouses into or modernize their data warehouses?
Sure. So I'm going to touch on three, Sunil. So the first is cost. I mean, there hasn't been a single migration conversation that hasn't focused to some degree around cost. It could be that the team is locked into a traditional architecture. It could be on-prem or cloud infrastructure. But in the traditional data warehouse, where they're paying for compute that they're not using, and they're paying a licensing model that just keeps getting more and more expensive year over year for the same amount of consumption. So they're really interested in moving towards a consumption-based model, and they really want to understand and model out what their consumption is going to look like on Databricks and how that compares to their current costs. So cost reduction is certainly a major factor. The second one is value creation, right? So especially these days with GenAI, they've got great ideas, and you hear amazing ideas about what these IT leaders can do for their business partners with the data. Unfortunately, this data is often trapped, and their data scientists become shadow data engineers building all these crazy pipelines to get the data out, get value from it, put it back in, and eventually they realize that just doesn't make sense. If they really want to get value from this data, they need to move to a different architecture. And finally, the third is architectural simplification. So you do have teams, generally some of your newer startups, digital natives, who have built some pretty sophisticated systems that allow them for reasonable cost to handle their data warehousing as well as their analytics. But what they've realized is that in doing this, they've built almost a shadow Databricks. I mean, they have so many of their data engineers and data scientists are focused on keeping their Kubernetes infrastructure running, on keeping all of these different microservices that they've built running. And along the way, they've realized that these people who should be focused on creating business value aren't. They're focused on this bespoke platform they've created. So they say, well, okay, we have a great platform, but we have so many people maintaining it. Let's perhaps simplify this architecture of all these different cloud services and all these different open source technologies we put together. Let's simplify this and move to Databricks. So that's the third one that we see. How about you? I mean, what are you guys seeing in the migration requests that are coming your way?
No, I think from latent view perspective, we are also seeing the same thing, right? So cost is the one driver, right? For example, let's say if you have modernized let's say you have modernized your data warehouse, but still you're consuming like a lot of credits, like for example, the competition, right? So what we are seeing is like even if you have modernized something, your cost is like skyrocketing. So how do you bring that cost down? So you migrated 4 or 5 years back into a modern cloud data warehouse, but you didn't anticipate the cost will go so high, right? So they are moving a lot, right? So we are seeing a lot of migrations which are happening from modern data warehouses, right? So that's where latent view is also focusing on, right? The second thing that we like you touched upon, right? So there has been a lot of legacy system that have been sitting out there, right? So in today's world, you don't want, like for example, if you are sitting in mainframe systems or in Teradata, right? You don't want to move the data in today's world, right? Data sharing is like the solution right out there, right? So
Yep.
so all these like extracting data into the files, moving it over, it is time consuming. Today is the time when GenAI is just like changing the world how we operate, right? So speed is the thing. So many enterprises now, like they don't want to sit in the legacy. And third is like I also believe like integrating all your data platforms, right? One, that is one thing. And how well you can integrate it with your ML platform, that's where Databricks also shines, right? So your data and ML stack is one, right? I think that's where we are also seeing majority of the customers that we are talking, right, are being migrating into Databricks. Yeah. So
Awesome.
moving on to the next one, Jordan. So yes, we understand that migration is there today, right? So but many large enterprise who are thinking about these migrations, right, now they are worried about like, hey, how should we move, right? What is the right approach? Should we just like do we lift and shift, or should we redesign? Because the technical people sitting out there, they are always of the opinion, hey, let's do the redesign, because they don't look at the time, right? How long is it going to take? They want to do it the things right way. So what you are seeing, and what is that you tell like our viewers, like what is that they should be
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah. Yeah. So, first, a level set that every migration is somewhat of a redesign and modernize, because it's rare to find an enterprise data warehouse that's been in existence for a dozen, 2 dozen years that doesn't have this massive ecosystem of stuff around it. And that stuff could be ETL tooling, orchestration, it could be certain ingestion patterns. These patterns just often don't even make sense in the cloud and are really impossible to lift and shift exactly. So there's always this kind of modernization component that comes in. Now, the one thing that I caution leaders is it's definitely possible to do too much at one time, to try and do too much and too fast. And I would say one of the most common cases where I see that happen is people say, I'm going to completely rethink the velocity and the latency of my data ingestion. At the same time, I completely move my data warehouse. So I'm going to move from a batch processing model to a streaming processing model at the exact same time that I move my data warehouse. And I think this is an awesome idea, but in practice, the difficulty is validation becomes extremely difficult. Your data in your new system is no longer the same at the same frequency as your data in your old system. It's very difficult to tell that you got your transformation logic right along the way, right? And so, basically, what I counsel people is, if you want to move fast, let's keep the data model more or less the same. That's going to make validation much simpler, and we can do validation across the board. Let's keep our ingestion frequency more or less the same at the start. That's going to make things quite easy. And then what degree of modernization we do to all the other kind of stuff is something that's a bit of a sliding scale, and we can take it as we go along. We always do some. For example, we'll do things like, hey, we see in the legacy system, and this is even just a recent example, in the legacy system, people have a bifurcated ETL path. If the file is small, they do one thing. If it's big, they do another thing, right? We don't necessarily need that path, because that was done because of some performance constraints in the legacy system that you no longer have. So you can really simplify that. We'll see things with just how the old system grew. Maybe half of it is case sensitive, half it's case insensitive. It's long been a giant pain, and we can do away with that as we modernize and make for a better experience for the end user. Now, major redesigns of the data model of the entire processing framework are great too, but they just require a different staffing model. And in those cases, it's something where it's really good to be have kind of tight interconnect with your business partners and form these sort of pods that you have some IT, you have a Databricks architect, you've got some business partners really thinking how they're modernizing a particular domain. and kind of a little going slow to go fast. If you know what I'm saying on the modernization, rethinking that domain's data model, having the business partner sign off on it. If you want to do a total redesign of your data model, that's really the approach you need to take. If you try to do the total redesign and also scale it to a factory model, it becomes quite difficult. And this really becomes difficult for this factory-based validation. It's hard to do. So, I think, we see them both. They're both great. A lot of them depends on kind of what sort of time frame do you want. And do you want to take a two-step process where, hey, look, let's just get the cost benefits. Let's get all the other value creation benefits, everything else we talked about. We can get all those benefits by largely keeping our data model intact because Databricks supports classic data models very well. And it supports, now we have all kinds of features that you would see in a mature data warehouse. We have transactions that are multi-statement, multi-table transactions, interactive with rollback and commit, as well as atomic, non-interactive transactions. We have the kind of collation support for case insensitive that you have in your legacy data warehouse. So there's really not a technical need per se to change a lot in your data model and in your consumption layer. So generally kind of counsel, hey, if you want to move really fast, let's keep the data model similar, very similar. Let's keep the general ingestion frequency very similar for now so that we can do this very quick validation. Later, you want to rethink your ingestion model, you want to rethink your data model. Let's work with your business partners. That's often the general approach we find customers taking. Or they go this alternative approach where you have a much smaller team, and that team might take longer, but they're working hand in hand with business throughout this process to get the ideal data model that makes the business partners happy. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear like what you guys are seeing. I think that you're probably doing some in each of these categories, right? With your current engagements, what are you seeing, Sunil?
First of all, that's a powerful insight, Jordan, that what you just said, right? Because I think most of the companies are still thinking on those lines. So whatever you suggested, I think it's what we are also doing. So we are seeing like the hybrid approach, right? You just can't move like in a factory model, right? I have seen like those migrations fail big time. If you want to go factory model, that's not the way, right? So you don't want to redesign 100%, right? Because all this what you have built over the 20 years has been functioning and servicing your business, right? That's what you want to do after lift and shift as well, right? So when you are thinking of migrating, right? So when you think of migrate, you think about like what business you want to bring in first, right? You don't want to think like I just want to take everything at once. No, that's not it is going to work, right? So you think about a business function, you pick that, and you see like you touched upon what are the inefficiencies in those processes, right? You redesign a little bit, and then you pick up the model. Like 70 to 80% could be your lift and shift, and 20% could be your redesign, right? Because that's how we have seen things function in large scale migration. Because if you try to redesign, it takes like way longer than what business anticipates, right? Because
Yeah,
business is
it's a
always
longer
looking
timeline.
for, yeah. So both IT and business are looking for ROI, right? Hey, we started spending money in the old platform, in the new platform. Where is my ROI? What I'm doing, right? Why I'm like seeing all that bottleneck, right? So hybrid approach is one, right? So along with the migration, anything new development has to be done in the new platform, right? You can't keep building in the new platform, like sorry, in the old platform while you are like migrating, right? So that's the way
Yeah.
we have been seeing. Yeah.
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 Great points. And there's one last point that I remembered while you were talking, when you were talking about ROI. So it's one thing. I think traditionally we saw a lot of our data warehouse migrations proceed kind of ETL first and then consumption. I know it kind of in a traditional architecture diagram we kind of call this left to right. And the issue with this is you really have delayed business value. So we talked about the value that you can get from your data in the cloud. One thing we've been seeing more and more requests for, and we've been building more tooling around, is actually what we might call a right to left or in parallel kind of approach, which is you set up some data replication. Now it does put some additional load on your production system. So your production system does have to be able to support this. Obviously, if you were in a cloud to start with, you can support it. If you were on premise to start with, usually you can. And we've got approaches for replication with very limited load in the production system. But you set up some kind of replication in Databricks. And the exciting thing about that is, one, you can start to get value and these value-driving use cases earlier. And two, you can bring your reporting developers and your business partners in much earlier to see their data in the cloud. They can start making sure that their reports still hook up to the data. That there will need to be some changes to their queries, most likely. They might have used some proprietary functionality or query patterns from the existing data warehouse. So they can start to do this early. They're not left to sort of the 11th hour. They're brought in early and they're already starting to get value, and they get excited about this journey. So you bring the ROI in earlier. So that's something we're really trying to promote, is this kind of right to left approach, if at all possible. Databricks, about a year and a half ago, acquired a company, Archeon, that was focused on data migration, and this has been some of the foundational technology behind our Lakeflow Connect data warehouse connectors for ingestion from databases and CDC from different databases, as well as you've probably seen our Lakehouse Federation, which allows for kind of natural definition of external catalogs and Unity catalog, and bring in these external data warehouses. So there's lots of ways to try and federate or bring this data in and replicate this data. So if at all possible, it's something that I have IT leaders think about when they're starting a migration.
Yeah, no, I think that's a critical distinction that you just highlighted, right? Whether you want to go left to right or right to left, right? I am also a big fan of right to left, right? Because you want to bring like ROI to the business, right? Not because this is not like you're doing for your own technical,
Yeah,
just to show your technical capability, right? There has to be an ROI on that. Yeah.
yeah,
No,
exactly.
thanks, Jordan. Yeah. So moving on, Jordan. So what type of since these migrations run for many months, right? So what type of like technical or organizational challenges you have seen in these large scale migrations that you have been doing over the course of your Databricks journey?
Yeah, certainly. So one of the big challenges is actually lack of maturity, SDLC maturity, and general data maturity on the source system side. So as part of these migrations, you need to know pretty well what code you're migrating, and you need to know what data you're migrating in order to validate that data. So often, if the house isn't in order on the source system side, there's some additional hurdles, right? There might even need to be setting aside some dedicated infrastructure for a QA environment on the source side, so that we actually have some way to do validation against some static data, and ensure that we've done exact match as part of our migration. And it could be, oh wait, we actually don't have our code checked in. Our code is all deployed on ETL servers here and there. So I would say this is one of the kind of, hybrid technical and organizational challenges. Is actually, it's probably a good idea to get your house in order a little bit. It's just like if you're going to go to move, right? When you want some people to kind of pack up your boxes, right? And you also maybe don't want to take every knickknack from your basement. Maybe say, okay, there's a good number of knickknacks that I want to leave behind. I want to donate. It's nice to kind of go through and say, hey, what in my data warehouse do I want to leave behind? What do I want to donate? And then kind of let's see how we can pack things up. And so, the other mistake I talked about is kind of trying to do too much too fast. I've already kind of touched on that. On the organizational side, it's really about like partnering with the appropriate teams early. And making sure that happens. So, as we mentioned, one of the reasons we like right to left is it really forces this partnership with the business teams early. It's always a mistake to leave that to the last minute. And I've seen that in a lot of, traditionally, a lot of planning for these migrations. People will talk only about the ETL. I'll be like, what about the consumption layer? What about that? I mean, we need to think about it. They're like, oh, that'll handle it. Those folks will handle it themselves. I'm like, they might not handle it themselves. Let's bring them in early. And So making sure those folks are brought in early and making sure the support org is brought in early, right? I mean, their ways of working will probably change somewhat. They may have been using traditional audit balance control framework. They may have a bunch of tables that they often go. If something breaks, they have all kinds of audit tables. Often these folks love the Databricks experience. They love the ability and how easy it makes to debug things, but it's different. It's a different experience. So you need to bring them in early, and you need to, these are the folks who are going to be supporting and maintaining the system going forward. Let's not leave them until 5 minutes before decommission of the old system before they're brought in. So those are the main challenges that I've seen and things that I think are important. Are there any that you'd add that you've seen from kind of some of your ongoing migrations?
Yeah, so in terms of learning, like, so what we have seen, yes, I'll go back to your analogy that you just connected, right? Moving a house versus a data warehouse, right? Hey, you don't want to move like what is sitting in the basement or your garage, right? Not everything is required, right? So those are like some things that we always tell customers, like, hey, over the last 20 years you have been building stuff but you're not using them, right? Leave them, right? So it is not causing you like, it's not costing you in the cloud, because in cloud everything is like cost money, right? That's one thing. But then the major challenge, like you have said, right, the things have been built because of to have like a work around the limitations of the technologies that exist in the past, right? So doing those conversions and all that, right, takes time. It's not like you will be able to automate the code conversion for everything that existed in the on-premise environment, right? So you can do the code conversion in an automated fashion, like 50 to 60%, right? That's the max you will get, right, with accuracy. Rest everything will start like you will need people to start converting, right? That's the accuracy we have seen. But when you start talking to the customers, right, they look at like, hey, everything will be done with like a flip of switch. That's not right. You're migrating a system that has been built over 20 years, so have some patience, right? It is going to take little while to migrate, right? So that's what I mean, like code migrations are like larger piece where I have seen some challenges, right? And of course, like you said, involving your business leaders, like the consumption layer is a good way to start, right? You cannot expect them to give you even the time, right? Forget about they get familiar with your Databricks system, right? Look and feel is different, yes, the syntax may be a little different, but their availability is also a challenge. If you don't involve them, right, they will not give you time, and unless they sign off you cannot move forward, right? So those things are fairly important, right, in this migration, right? So those are like some of the organizational challenge that you need to maneuver early through as you start your migration journey.
I was reminded of one thing when you were talking, Sunil, that was kind of one of the other things I've seen about this basement. And if you don't involve the business partners early, I saw this once in a migration. It was really the most difficult workload. It took a couple months to migrate, validate, make sure that it was totally 100% correct. Right before it's moved to production, then the business partners were brought in and they said, "Oh, we're planning to deprecate this in a month. Like, we're no longer get value from this workload. We have an entirely new approach that we've been bringing." So this is like what can happen, and a sort of wasted effort that can happen as well if the business partners aren't brought in early, because sometimes they can help you identify what is that in the basement, and really, do I need that knickknack that's over there? Like, it's sort of like there's that Marie Kondo thing or whatever, right? Where you're like, does this bring me joy? I think there's a lot of things in data warehouse that don't really bring the business joy. So it's nice to bring them in early.
Yeah, no, absolutely aligned. So moving on, Jordan. So in terms of I know Databricks acquired Lakebridge, like Bladebridge, now renamed as Lakebridge, right? So, in terms of any accelerators that you have been using in your recent migrations after the acquisition of Bladebridge, right? What, how much acceleration have you seen with those type of accelerators? Do you want to share something?
Yeah. No, exactly. The history of Lakebridge is somewhat of the merging of kind of two initiatives. There was really an internal initiative for building workload profiling and as well as data validation software and some conversion. some SQL-based conversion using abstract syntax tree-based approaches, breaking the SQL down, and then rebuilding it in the new system. And then for these ETL systems, your Informatica data stage talent, we were relying heavily on Bladebridge, right, which is a vendor of software that extracts the metadata from these systems and would rebuild Databricks notebooks that mimic the behavior of these ETL systems. So with this acquisition, we were able to bring them together. We were able to offer a simplified, unified experience under the Lakebridge banner, and release that tooling as part of the Databricks CLI and as part of Databricks Labs. So all Databricks users can get access to that as a CLI-based experience, and we're also building some additional GUI-based features on top of that. There's some exciting kind of GenAI enhancements to it. So outside of that, Lakebridge, there's a few other pieces of tooling that I find really critical for any migration, and that we're kind of in active conversations and kind of bringing them together, as part of the Lakebridge ecosystem. Now we tend to be a little bit separate. So one I talked about before, which is data movement and replication. You've got to get the data. Somehow you can convert all the code you want, but you need to have some data. And if that data is trapped, you've got to get it out. And it's often useful to get it out many times, right? Maybe there were some issues when you pulled it out. Maybe there were some issues in data formats, in the ways that it was extracted, but also it's just become stale. It becomes stale. You pull it out once, it's suddenly stale. It's production data. You've got to get your deltas coming in. It's really nice to actually set up some sort of replication system. So we have a good amount of automation around that. I mentioned before the Archeon acquisition that brought sort of ways of thinking as well as technology around this. Also the Tabular acquisition that brought ways of thinking as well as technology around the standardized Iceberg format for cloud migrations, right? So there it's important if you're pulling data out of Snowflake and other places in the cloud to have kind of a common data format between the two, allow for this period of parallel runs, allow for a period of reconciliation. So that's been really helpful. And the other tooling that we've continued to invest in is around data validation. Data validation is really the long pole in any migration experience. You want to be able to confidently tell your business partners that your data is 100% correct. It either 100% matches their old data, or hey, look, we found bugs. I mean, this happens. We found issues in the old data. Now it's even better, right? And we brought you along the journey, and you see why it's better. So, and you want to be able to do that. Along the way, there's challenges in doing that, and validation tooling that just tells you what's wrong and not why it's wrong doesn't save that much time. It's much more useful to have something that's kind of lineage aware, to say, hey, where in the upstream lineage does this break? And what can I do to make it not break? And this is, one thing that I think is like a really cool place for some GenAI based innovation. This is something, it's a lot of developer time spent on exactly why does this one field not match and what's going on, and trying to augment that developer time with the intelligence of these LLMs. I think is something that's very exciting for me. It's something that I'm always trying to push. There's not tooling out there that does this perfectly. So like, if you're watching this webinar and you are a tooling vendor who has a perfect validation root cause analysis tooling suite, like let us know at Databricks. But it's something that we're working on, and there's other innovations in the GenAI space. I'm happy to talk about them in a minute, but I want to flip over to you. I know you guys have some cool tooling innovations. Can you bring me up to speed on kind of what you've done with your tooling?
No, thanks, Jordan. Yeah. So our tool that we have developed, right, before Lake Bridge was acquired by Databricks, right? So every partner had their own set of tools, right? So LatentView, based on our also like experience in the last 4 or 5 years on migration journey, right? We built Migrate Mate, right? So Migrate Mate is our tool that we have used in many large scale migrations. So the way we have seen it like differentiated from Blade Bridge in the past was like you touched upon, validation is the heart of any migration journey, right? So if you are not able to match penny to penny, business will not adopt the new platform, and then whole your like effort is going for a toss, right? So that was like one heart of the migrate made solution, right? So how could you, first of all, like you said, pulling out the CDC, right? Because business like production data is changing ever, right? You can't just like 5 billion record table, you can't pull it in a small 2 hours window, right? By the time you go, the next thing has changed, right? So that CDC mechanism and data validation, I think those were the two core things that we focused on, and it helped us in doing like large scale migrations. But
Awesome.
now, as with the GenAI is coming into the picture, right? So we have also invested quite a bit of time in injecting all these LLMs into our tooling as well, right? So in our discovery module, we have injected all this LLM, right? So we are able to say with confidence what we can convert with a certain degree of confidence, right? So we put it in our discovery report. Yes, we can do this on stored procedures, on table conversions, and certain code conversions, right? All the database objects, we put a degree of confidence in our discovery report now, right? Yes, with the introductions of LLMs. That's one thing. And then, yes, I mean, like from a Lake Bridge standpoint, we also offer a wider variety of sources, right? Yes, yeah, we both have common, let's say, Teradata, we have Snowflake, we have done tons of migration, but we also have like Google BigQuery, right? And Hadoop slash Hive. That is another thing that our tool supports, right? So we are augmenting what Lake Bridge gives, but then we are also adding what Migrate Made brings to the table. Yeah,
That's great. That's great. I mean, that's 100%. You know, that's very exciting for me, and that's very much how we want to work with Lakebridge with our partners. That's why we moved away from the licensing model, and that's why we made this, and why we democratized this to the CLI. We want people to build on it. We want people to build something better. We want people to be driving value for their customers and their clients, and help make these migrations simpler and easier. So, and I think the pieces that you've augmented with are awesome. So, like as we said, that getting the data over, and being able to also have a lot of intelligence in the validation process is really important.
nice, nice. Yeah.
Great.
So, go ahead.
You talked about Gen AI. I'm a little excited to talk about Gen AI if you don't mind.
Uh,
I'll add a few words because I think it's like a really cool emerging in
yeah,
this space.
absolutely. Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I would say if you went back a couple of years, we were a little hesitant to build all of our migration tooling around Gen AI. There was some hesitation around consistency. Hey, you want to have consistent output. It makes it easier to debug for your ETL teams. It makes it easier to insert let's say you want to do some refactoring, and you have a UDF that you need, and every time a certain pattern is there, you want to insert this UDF. If you have some consistency, that makes it easier. So there was hesitancy around Gen AI, and early testing didn't show the kind of consistency that we wanted. It showed some hallucination that we didn't want. Just as you've seen with the Databricks assistant maturity in Databricks, I mean these models, these tools have come a long way, and I think it's super promising in a few areas in particular. So first, really complex query refactoring. So you have some very mature SQL parsers and some of these data warehouses. They really allow reference order can be out of order. You can really refer to CTEs before you define them. You can refer to lateral column aliases before you define them. You can use them everywhere. And people write complex queries that take advantage of this, not realizing that these are features that don't necessarily translate everywhere in every data warehouse. And I think that for the consumption user that might have their own queries, and there might be diversity of queries over 3,000 different users, GenAI really allows one to sort of democratize this ability to convert the code and really get close to 100% for kind of these, not full ETL workflows, but these kind of consumption queries that need refactorings, running from small to large. And especially what's cool about it is the ability to take humans out of the error correcting loop and make it a bit self-correcting, right? You try a conversion, you syntax test that conversion. If it fails, you take that error message and put it back and have the LLM try to improve it, right? And it succeeds. Then you run validation. You take the error from that and you put it back and try to have the GenAI improve it, right? Now, obviously, when it talks about putting things back from data validation, you have to be careful. You've got to make sure that you're not exposing sensitive data, sensitive parts of your error to the LLM if it's something that is maybe a third party hosted LLM or something like that. But it's a cool maturing space, really kind of taking these humans out of the loop. And making it such that people don't have to modify configuration files. People don't have to figure out from a data validation error message what the root cause is. So I'm really excited to see this, maturity in this space, in both democratizing as well as kind of taking the human out of the loop. And so we are actively incorporating it. In the sort of last mile conversion in Lakebridge, as well as building Databricks app experience around this democratized conversion experience for folks that are converting, for the consumption users, the reporting developers, et cetera. So it sounds like you guys are doing something quite similar in fact.
Yeah, so like I said earlier as well, right? So yes, we have started to bring GenAI into our migrate tooling as well.
Yeah,
First is like on the discovery side, and like you touched upon on the code conversion, and then like how do you bring the auto validation, right? So that human doesn't have to be there, right? So those are the two three
yeah,
things that we are also bringing in our migrate. But no, I appreciate
very
you
cool.
shedding a light on this, right?
Sure.
Because a lot of viewers are like looking how GenAI could be used in these migrations, right? How does it speed up my migration? That's what they're looking for, right? Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
yeah. So moving on,
Awesome.
Jordan. So I think we touched upon all subjects. Once you have migrated, right, the IT leaders are looking for what are my next savings, right? So what type of savings have you seen like customers getting after they done the migrations?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. So I'll talk about probably one of our most competitive spaces, which is migrating from other cloud data warehouses, right? So obviously migrating from on-prem data warehouses where people are locked into some expensive
Yeah.
licensing model, they're going to see the savings, right? It's like it's guaranteed they're going to see the savings, right? It's a real
No,
hassle to get there, but they're going to see the savings. But from other cloud data warehouses that are highly optimized, like the Snowflakes of the world, right? It can be uncertain, and the IT leaders can say, "Look, I've seen your benchmarks. You've got some very promising benchmarks. You might have seen ever since from late 2021. We have some TPC DS benchmarks showing significant performance and price performance advantage over Snowflake. Recently, my colleague Shannon Barrow had a great series of blogs and talks about TPCDI, and saw 2 to 3x performance and and price performance improvements over Snowflake. He actually got a lot of heat in LinkedIn from Snowflake SMEs who said he did things wrong the first time. And to Shannon's credit, he actually took all of that advice. He even talked with Snowflake representatives to get the best practices about how to do things, and then redid his benchmarks and had very similar results. So you see some exciting benchmarks, but a lot of IT leaders are saying, okay, benchmarks are one thing, but like, how does that actually translate? Like, my code is not clean. It is super messy. Who knows what people did? I have no idea if this actually translates. So, in real life, we do see savings. It's not astronomical as astronomical as the savings you see in the benchmarks. I would say generally, what I've seen is about 30 to 40% cost savings at the same comparable or better performance when migrating from a really top-notch cloud data warehouse like Snowflake. So, and I do want to say that this is performance in the aggregate over a relatively decent sized mixed workload. Right, one individual query might run a whole lot faster, it might run slower, and what you have is often if you pick a few select queries that are highly influenced by something like skew or something like this, right? You can actually not be leveraging your CPU very well on Databricks. You can move that one query to Databricks, and your per query cost can be a lot less than Snowflake. But if you actually look, your cluster was up for a long time, right? Your SQL warehouse was up for a long time, but only one of those CPUs was properly, right? So, really, when folks are doing the pilots and the POCs, I say pick a fairly decent sized representative workload. This might be 5 pipelines encompassing 100 dbt models or something like this, right? And move that over to Databricks. Be mindful of how it's deployed throughout the process. Deploy it similarly to how you deploy in Snowflake. Don't start spinning up a bunch of all-purpose, always-on clusters or something, right? Just use our SQL warehouse offering, do something very comparable to what you did on Snowflake, and across this representative workload, you're going to see these savings. And that's our pitch, and it's proven true in my experience that we're seeing that about that 30 to 40%, and we're continuing to see it as we scale up. So that's where we see it in our kind of most competitive scenarios. But this is a competitive space. Snowflake is constantly innovating. We're constantly innovating. So it's always just trying to stay ahead of the competition.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I also agree with you, right? We here at LatentView also, we are seeing like a lot of conversations, and then we are also doing like some migrations from Snowflake into Databricks, right? So the ones that
that's
we
awesome.
have done, the ones that we have done, right? We have seen customers saving like 30 to 35% just in the transformation layer itself, right? So other things you are not even comparing them, right? So when you look at just the transformation layer, you're seeing 30 to 35% cost saving, right? Yeah, so
Yeah.
cool.
That's perfect. That's great. Yeah, you have some ongoing Snowflake to Databricks migrations, don't you?
Yes, so we have like a couple of large scale migrations going on, right? So like you said, pick up one perfect use case, right? Perfect means like, okay, which is not utterly complex, not simple as well, right? Which is like the right balance, right? So we are doing a POC, which is a 2-month POC, right? So you are trying to make sure that end to end the features that were happening in the Snowflake world, right? It is happening, right? So for example, if you are able to do the delta sharing, that's one thing. You are able to spin up like your Power BI dashboards, right? Your ML models that have been working, right? So end to end use case, and then we have committed like we will be able to bring down the cost from Snowflake by 35 to 40%. That's the promise that we are going with Databricks, and we are sure we'll be able to do that, right? In these
That sounds like a realistic promise. Yeah, that sounds good. I could get behind that promise. So.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So, Jordan, I think we are almost on the top of the hour. So, before we end the discussion, right? So, what is the one piece of advice that you would like to, like all the IT leaders who are thinking of this like EDW
Yeah.
migration journey. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first, don't wait. The product is mature. We have the capabilities there now. The capabilities you had in your data warehouse, they're there now in the product. That and a whole lot more on the AI side. So you can drive a whole lot of value. So don't wait. But the one thing I would say is that this is always a process that it takes a while to start, right? There's contracts to be signed. There's budget conversations to go through. While this is happening, get your house in order. Pack up your basement. Take a look and say, does this spark joy? Does this not spark joy? And
Right.
get your SDLC processes a bit more in order. Understand exactly what the code is, what needs to go, what doesn't need to go. Talk with your business partners about potentially refactoring. See what they're actually using. look at your query history and see what they're actually using and what they're getting value from and what they aren't getting value. So there's a lot you can do during this lead-in to your migration to really accelerate that migration itself. So don't necessarily wait until all the signatures on the dotted line, because look, this is, even if something fell through, this work is going to help you, right? At least you're not going to be running workloads in your system that you don't need and that your business partners don't use, whether you migrate or not. So there's really no downside to doing this prep work. So that'd be my advice. How about you? Anything you'd
No,
change on that?
no, I think I agree with you, right? Whatever you said is like a good insight for all the IT leaders, right? Start your
Yeah,
work, like start doing some prep work before you actually go through all this like POC and all, right? Just look at what you have in your house, right? Get your house in
yeah,
order, because that is where the majority of the problems are. Right? Yeah.
awesome.
Cool.
Well,
Okay.
it was great talking with you, Sunil.
Yeah. No. Thank you. Thank you, Jordan, for joining us and sharing all these valuable insights. Thank you so much.
Yeah. No, it's exciting to see what LatentView is doing, and looking forward to continuing to partner with you guys.
Yeah. Excited for
Okay,
working with you, Jordan. Thank you.
take care.